over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. You know about the daily stuff from Kyle Hunter and Parker Michaels. Daily NBA, college basketball, NHL updates over there. Also golf, tennis, UFC, soccer, all kinds of great stuff going on at BangTheBook.com. Make sure you check it out. And also next week, I'll be releasing my Major League Baseball stuff. My 30 MLB season win total previews, futures odds for AL, NL, and World Series, Home Run King, Cy Young, MVP, all that stuff going to be posted over at BangTheBook.com. We're also doing it this year as a Kindle ebook, and there will be a PDF at BangTheBook.com as well. So lots of ways to get my betting guide. And as we go throughout the month of March here, we're going to do a follow-up guide, probably 30 to 35 pages, with betting tips for each individual team. Looking at some pitchers, some team angles, stuff like that. So you can look forward to that here in the month of March as well. As you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB200 is that promo code. 100% deposit match bonus up to $500. 100% deposit match bonus up to $500 for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. We got one more guest and one more segment for this week on Bang the Book Radio. It is Kyle Hunter of HunterSportsPicks.com for our second Handicapping the Hardwood segment. Kyle, how's it going today, man?
It's going well, man. How about yourself?
Doing very well, buddy. Appreciate the time as always here, sir. And we're going to start things off with the last conference that we have to cover. That is the MEAC, and this conference is terrible.
Yeah, this is a weak conference. I knew it was a weak conference. I started looking at it even more. It's weaker than I thought. Very weak conference. This is a conference where most teams don't shoot it very well. You get a lot of free throw attempts, a bunch of offensive rebounds, second chance points here. To me, this is a conference where most of the teams are bunched pretty close together. None of them really that great. I think Norfolk State's clearly the best team in this league. If you look at Norfolk State, what really stands out to you about them is they're a MEAC team that can really shoot it. 41.3% from three in conference play, pretty easily first in the conference when it comes to shooting percentages. So, if you can shoot it and you can take care of the ball, which is also kind of rare in this conference, then that's going to be something that's going to give you an edge. To me, this is a conference where it's kind of hard to predict how things will go in a conference tournament because Norfolk State, the best team here, but there's a lot of teams here that could end up in the final, and it wouldn't be very surprising. It's just, whoever comes out of this conference is going to have a difficult time, giving anybody a tough game, and they'd likely be in that play-in game.
Yeah, we talked about I believe it was the Northeast Conference representative probably being the 16 in that play-in game. Would think that there's a pretty good chance that they'll wind up playing the MEAC Conference representative. And, Norfolk State did have that run, 7 or 8 years ago now. Really not a whole lot more to it than that for them. So, this is a conference tournament, though, that is played in Norfolk. So, I believe it's still in Norfolk here this year. So Norfolk State will also be kind of a de facto home team in this conference tournament as well.
Yeah, I remember that being the case. As far as I know, it's still there again. And I remember this being one of the venues that's a pretty good under venue. So we'll talk about that more as we go forward. But this is a conference tournament where you would expect there would be some pretty bad shooting numbers because, none of them can shoot very well to start with. And then you play in an arena that's known as an under venue. So that's something that I'd watch for from there. But, as we look at this conference, it's just a very weak conference. I'm going to look down through here to see the teams as far as where I would rank them. Norfolk State, top, pretty easily top in my book. Bethune-Cookman next. Pretty good defense, fifth most experienced team in the country. You have to give them some credit there. North Carolina Central, I really like Moten, their coach. I think he's a very good coach. The thing that concerns me about them, they've played the weakest schedule in the country, and you hate that going into a tournament time. Howard has the best player in the conference in Cole. They really take care of the basketball as well. I hope that we can get some decent odds on Howard, and they get a decent matchup in the conference tournament because I would think that they could be a bit of a sleeper. North Carolina A&T next from me. Florida A&M, good defense for them, really bad offense. So bad that it's been very difficult for them to win some of their big games because they're just that bad on offense. Morgan State, another good coach, some talent here. Certainly think they have some potential. Savannah State, most people know Savannah State because of the way that they play, and their tempo is just ridiculous. They run down as fast as they can, jack up a long jumper, and then play some really bad defense. I have noted that they've slowed down a decent amount here in the league, quite a bit slower than they were last year. So I don't know if that's a intentional move or if that's just kind of what they did, but they're certainly not playing at the crazy pace that they were earlier in the season, at least. South Carolina State would be next for me, then Coppin State, Delaware State, and Maryland Eastern Shore. And I will say those bottom two teams are about as bad as it gets in college basketball.
Yeah, and again, this is a very weak league, a one and done type of team here in the in March Madness, unless of course they get that 16 versus 16 play-in game, and maybe Norfolk State or somebody can pull off a victory there, and then get crushed by one of the number one seeds. But still good to talk about this conference, and again, we will touch on it come conference tournament time, and also with that backdrop there at the Norfolk Scope Arena for the conference tournament. One quick note here. I know that we've had a couple of cutouts already here on this Skype recording. I apologize for that. Blog Talk Radio, again, doing its usual bullshit. So doing the best that we can here with this show. Hopefully it doesn't take away too much from the content here. So just bear with us as we go throughout this segment here. But in any event, Kyle, as we transition away from a conference that is absolutely terrible to a power conference that's not very good, you and I were talking about this before we started recording. I know you made a live play on Washington last night, a play that you would make again, but the Huskies failing to come through. The Pac-12 is probably a one-bid league at this point.
The Pac-12 should be a one-bid league. I'm curious to see if it actually happens, because that's what they deserve. Is the conference, or is the committee going to give this conference some of the, extra love? Sometimes, these big conferences that don't deserve as much as what they end up getting, you kind of think because of their name or because they've been good in the past, they play favorites with them versus the mid-majors. I think that certainly has happened before. I really hope that a Pac-12 team doesn't get in instead of a mid-major that really deserves it. That's one of the things that I would think first of all. And Washington, I mean, they get in the top 25 for the first time, and then they go and lose to Cal. And I was sitting there looking at Washington's resume here earlier this morning. Who has Washington beaten? I mean, Washington has not beaten anybody good. So Washington, if they lose out pretty quickly, I mean, they'll likely get in the NCAA tournament, I guess, because who else are they going to put in? But if somebody else beats them in the Pac-12, Washington's got to be a bubble team, right? I mean, because if you look at their top games, they've lost all the best teams they've played.
Yeah, I mean, you would think so, and they should be. And the thing is, I hope that Washington wins the conference tournament just so that the Pac-12 only gets the one bid. If they don't, then we'll see. And like you said, and this is always such a challenging thing for the committee. I do wish that some more mid-majors got in. Some teams that can make those storylines. I mean, who really wants to see, except unless you're a Washington fan, who really wants to see a bad power conference team, or a team from a bad power conference get in there over one of these mid-majors that at least has some life and could make things interesting. I mean, look, March Madness is about the Cinderella stories until you get to the Elite Eight. Then it's about the best teams in the country. And I think the networks even would rather see a mid-major get in over a Washington or somebody like that. So we'll see how it plays out. But, yeah, I mean, for right now, the Pac-12 in both football and basketball really needs to fix something.
It's hard to believe they could be as bad as they are right now in football and basketball. I mean, because, we started out the season, we knew how bad they were in football, and they're worse in basketball. And yeah, I mean, that's hard to believe because, at least in football, they have a Washington team that is certainly a good team under Chris Peterson in college football. Basketball, I mean, Washington is the team that if they get into the tournament, they will be a tricky matchup because of that zone. I don't think people are going to want to play them, but Washington isn't going to be able to make a really deep run either because they're not consistent enough on offense to make a deep run. So, I totally agree with you on the hope that the mid-majors make it in versus the power conference team, not just from the Pac-12, but in general from the other conferences that are really not very deserving because, let's be honest, they have a shot every year. A lot of these mid-major teams don't really have a chance usually. So I hope that they get their chance this season.
All right, so as we transition away from the Pac-12 here, let's look at some fade and follow teams. And we start with the fade team here. This one, a major conference fade team, and I really like this one.
Yeah, Wisconsin, the Badgers. This is not so much that I think Wisconsin's a bad team, and I would say that this is more of a short-term look. But you're going to be laying decent-sized prices here against Penn State and Iowa. The Badgers off the double overtime loss to Indiana. Wisconsin's offense has not been very good here lately. I was looking at Bart Torvik's site. 6 straight games for Wisconsin that they've been under their season average on three-point shooting percentage. So this is putting a lot of pressure on Hap to do it all on this offense. And I think Hap's a tremendous player. I know he's had a couple bad games here lately, and he's not very good at the free throw line. But Ethan Hap is somebody that could help a lot of teams. A lot of people would want to have him, that's for sure. I don't think Wisconsin's a very deep team. We're not making that three. You got like Trice, Davison, guys like that. If they're not making that 3-point shot, it puts a lot of pressure on this Wisconsin team to either have a bunch of points from Ethan Happ on the inside or to win one of those 55 to 54 type games. And if the opponent's hitting some shots from outside, it can be difficult for them. And I think Wisconsin laying a big price is not something I'd be very interested in. So I think that they could be a good fade, especially based on the spot that they're in here coming up.
Now, as we look at the follow team, we've kind of been waiting for somebody to challenge VCU in the Atlantic 10. Dayton is a solid team, but there's a pretty decent gap, I would say, between VCU and the rest of the conference here. Maybe this team is able to close that gap a little bit?
Yeah, maybe. I would say they're not as good as VCU or Dayton, but they're a team that's kind of come to be one of the competitors, at least, some kind of competition for them. St. Bonaventure, I really like their way they're buying in on the defensive end. The Bonnies have held 5 straight opponents to 44.4% or lower on 2-point field goal attempts. Now, that's really impressive. I'm not talking 44.4% from the floor overall. 44.4% on 2-point field goal attempts. Very good. They have some really good shot blockers down low. If you start looking at their block shot stats, they're pretty impressive. So St. Bonnie's been buying in on the defensive end. If they were a little bit better on offense, they'd certainly be right up there with VCU, but their offense isn't quite efficient enough. St. Bonnie's been playing good lately, so I wish I had said St. Bonnie a couple games ago because they've been on a nice streak here of late, but I think they can keep it going here for a while based on how strong their defense is.
All right, so let's get into some games for this weekend. And you notice we're kind of moving through this quickly because we want to talk some conference tournament stuff at the end of the segment here. And we'll also update you on what we plan to do with our schedule for recordings in the month of March. So let's go ahead and dive into the games here. And we'll start with a couple of heavyweights. And this is a game that a lot of people have been looking forward to, the rematch between Kentucky and Tennessee.
Yeah, huge game. And I think this game means more to Tennessee than Kentucky, and I'd be curious to get your take on that as well. I mean, Tennessee has more to prove. Kentucky beat them the way that they did, getting all those offensive rebounds. Kentucky, according to Bart Torvik, got 41.4% of their missed shots back in the first game. That's really the biggest key for Tennessee is can they keep Kentucky off the offensive glass? We've talked about Rick Barnes a lot before, and I don't think that he's done a bad job with this team thus far. Obviously, it's certainly been a good season for Tennessee. I do note that I think that Tennessee is not playing as well as they were earlier in the season. They've had a couple losses, they've had a couple close games that you wonder if maybe they should have won a little bit easier than they have. I don't trust this Tennessee team in March, especially in the big dance. So, Kentucky to me is a team with the much higher upside. I do think, though, that this is a game that means a lot to Tennessee. So I'd be hesitant to take Kentucky in this game. I'm curious to see where this line comes out. I think it's going to be pretty close to pick 'em because Kentucky was favored there at home. Tennessee likely maybe -1. I think that this game, like I said, means more to Tennessee. Tennessee has more to prove, in my opinion. Would you agree with that, Adam?
Yeah, I would. I especially when you lose by 17 in the first meeting. That was a game that was billed as such a top 5 type of showdown. And, now, you've got your chance at retribution. You've got your chance at retribution at home. And also, too, is this a number 1 seed elimination game in the NCAA tournament? That's something that I'm kind of interested in here, too. Obviously, the conference tournament could sort of define that. But I do wonder here, if you're Tennessee and you lose this game, do you have any chance at being a number one seed? I don't think so. I don't know if they do to begin with, but obviously you would like to be able to hang that banner, so to speak. I think this game means a lot to Tennessee, especially being the newer kid on the block. Kentucky's been there, done that. Tennessee, I think this is a game that would really help them in terms of their confidence going into the month of madness here.
Yeah, and that's what would make me pause if I was looking to bet Kentucky here. It's just that Tennessee has so much on the line. Kentucky has already shown that they can beat these top-notch teams. They already had that blowout of Tennessee. They've had some impressive wins here. They beat Kansas at home, went to Auburn and won, beat North Carolina on neutral. This is a Kentucky team that I think we know what they are. Kentucky's a really good defense. A lot of block shots, a lot of length on defense. Really good on the offensive boards. What's Tennessee, though? I mean, Tennessee is a good team. There's nobody doubting that. Tennessee is a experienced team. I mean, they're fifth in minutes continuity in the country. So they have a lot of, they're a very experienced team, not necessarily a really deep team. They do pass it well. Assists per field goals made, 7th in the country. So Tennessee moves the ball pretty well here. They're better on offense than they are on defense. But, if you look at some of their games throughout the course of the season, they've won a lot of close games. And some of those close games have been against opponents they shouldn't have had close games against. So they had a 3-point win at home against Alabama, and overtime win on the road against Vanderbilt. Games like that would make you be concerned about Tennessee. And like I said, I don't really like the trajectory that they're on at this point. I think that, Kentucky is getting better and better from the beginning of the season to now. I don't see the same thing about Tennessee.
Yeah, I really don't either. And, this is the time of year when you really want to be rounding into form. And that's why a team like Michigan State is so dangerous year in and year out, because Tom Izzo always has this team ready to go when we get to the month of March. And that's something, we talk about Rick Barnes, and we've kicked a lot of dirt on the guy before. And, maybe in some instances he's deserved it, and maybe in others he hasn't. But this is the time when you define your legacy and what you are as a head coach. So if Tennessee comes out and plays really well here and then follows it up with Mississippi State and Auburn, that's a really good sign going forward. If Tennessee can't capitalize on this opportunity and has issues down the line in the conference tournament or the last 2 regular season games, Tennessee will be a team I will not take for a deep run in March.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as far as March, whether they're going to make a deep run, I'd be hesitant to back them regardless, because Rick Barnes has not proven that he can win then. Like you said, if they play really well in this game and then show very well in the conference tournament, then maybe you at least consider it. But also at that point, if they play that well, then their price is going to be pretty expensive. So to me, this year and the way that they play and the big dance is going to say a lot about Rick Barnes going forward.
All right, so we move on to the Ohio Valley Conference here, but we stay in that part of the country as we look at Austin Peay and Murray State. And this was a game that I isolated on Wednesday in my Wednesday weekend look-ahead video over on our Bang the Book YouTube page. It's taken on a little bit of a different appearance now because of what happened to Austin Peay last night.
Yeah, Austin Peay getting upset by Eastern Kentucky 82-80 was certainly something that changed the look of this game quite a bit, because, if you look at the conference standings in the OVC, you got Belmont and Murray State tied at the top. Now you've got Austin Peay is too far back to where, they don't have a chance at it. They're 13-4. It looked like they might only have 3 losses going into this game. Now they have the 4 losses. What does that mean for this game? I mean, I'd be very hesitant to back Austin Peay now. Murray State has a lot to play for here. They're a very good team. I know Murray State beat Morehead State 71-52 on Thursday night. I believe that game was like 52-19 at one point. So they definitely let off the gas in that game. Murray State's been playing very well here of late. Austin Peay, a very good season this year, better than most people thought they would be. They don't have the talent that Murray State does. And they're coming off that disappointing loss. And you have to wonder, what does this game mean now to Austin Peay? I mean, do they want to play spoiler or not? Because that's basically what they have to play for in this game. Murray has a lot to play for here with the OVC title. Austin Peay, you could easily see them saying, well, let's make our conference tournament run. So if we got one regular season game left, and here it is. Austin Peay slowed down the first game quite a bit. The tempo was very slow in that game. I want to see if they'll do the same thing here. And I would guess the tempo will be faster in this game than what it was in the first game. Murray's trying to push the pace with their athletes. Murray's going to be laying a pretty big number here. So do I really want to lay 10.5 points or whatever it might be here? Not anxious to do that, but I'd certainly be cautious about Austin Peay based on the spot.
Austin Peay in the first game lost by a bucket at home, 73-71, which is very high scoring for a game with 62 possessions. So Be interesting to see what the total looks like for this game. If the expectation is that, Murray State's able to dictate the tempo a little bit more, play this game closer to 69 or 70 possessions, which is where Austin Peay has averaged for the season. So that'll be a really interesting thing to look at here in this one. Fun game that doesn't have as much importance now as it previously did, but maybe a game to consider as we head into the Ohio Valley Conference tournament here next week. Let's go out to the Mountain West. Nevada takes on Utah State. This is a really intriguing game here coming up on Saturday because you've got a Nevada team that, hasn't been tested a ton in conference play. You would think they should get a really good test here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a great game. And as I was making my notes here for this is the game where I just kept making more notes and looking at it even more. I really like this game. This is the game I'm looking forward to the most on Saturday. Utah State has been really well coached this year by Craig Smith. Great job by him. Look at what they were last year. They were 17-17, 23-6 so far this year. They were 230th in effective field goal percentage defense last year, 20th this year. And they've also proved that they can do it multiple ways. Utah State in the non-conference was really pushing the pace, playing very quickly, have slowed down a lot here in conference action, playing almost 7 possessions slower per game in conference than non-conference. Now it's normal to slow down, and you'll see a lot of teams, 2.5 possessions slower than what they were. 7 possessions is a very big change, much bigger than normal. So Utah State slowed down a lot. They're winning with really good defense. They're second in the nation in defensive rebounding percentage. And we've talked about many times in the past how much that's really important. I think most people underrate getting those defensive rebounds. Giving a team second chance is really a big killer. And you also look at this Utah State team, 5th in the country in assists per field goals made. I think all these things are signs of a great coach. You look at not giving a team second chance points, passing the ball around, playing very good defense. And in your first year, if you're able to turn the team around that much, it really speaks highly of the coach. Look, Nevada has more talent in this game. So if you're going just based on talent alone, Nevada would have to get the edge here. I think as far as how this game will play out, I think Utah State's going to try to pack it in and make Nevada beat them with a 3. Nevada's definitely going to want to get out in transition and try to score before Utah State sets up their defense. But Utah State ranks in the 96th percentile in transition defense, according to Synergy Sports. So Utah State's been really good at stopping teams from getting out in transition. Also, one thing that I think we should definitely note, Utah State, a great home court advantage. Nevada's had a couple slip-ups here in the conference. They should be ready for this game, though, because, it's no surprise to them. This game means a lot to both teams if you look at the standings. So should be a great game here.
Yeah, it definitely should be. And these two teams played January 2nd, which feels like an eternity ago. Nevada won 72-49, 0.651 points per possession for Utah State in that game.
Ouch.
0.651. Every game since then, they've had over a point per possession, and have had several games where they've had at least 1.2 points per possession. So almost feels like that game was a turning point for them. Because since then, they've been really, really good. Had the 1-point loss at Fresno, lost at San Diego State, but played pretty well overall in both of those games. So this is a much different Utah State team. And what's going to be really interesting here, also the line for this game, you lost by 23 in the first game. And this game is going to be what? Maybe Utah State +2, +1.5, something like that. That's a really interesting thing that should catch a lot of people's attention on Saturday.
Yeah, I think Utah State +1, +1.5 in that range. And I'm very interested to see what the total is as well, because if you look at the first game, like you said, it was very fast paced, and Utah State just couldn't make a shot. I think Utah State wants to slow this game more than they did the first game. It didn't work to play at Nevada's pace the first time around, 75 possessions in that game. I think this one, they want it to be under 70. So let's see what the total comes out at. Would probably lean to the under here, I think, based on the intensity from two teams. And I will just note that in general, when you get to the end of the regular season, you want to look for games where there's two good teams playing against each other, and that game means a lot to them. If you like the under, that's a good spot for it in the long term.
There's something to maybe consider. I mean, if Utah State wins this game, right, their losses on the year, Arizona State on a neutral, nothing wrong with that. BYU on the road, tough place to play. Houston, obviously a very, very good team. Nevada, Fresno State by a point at home. Lost to San Diego State on the road, but San Diego State, of course, had that nice performance earlier on in the year against Nevada. Does Utah State put themselves in the at-large consideration bubble if they win this game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Utah State would probably be in the discussion even if they lose this game, if it's a tight game. But as weak as the bubble is this year, Utah State wins this game unless something really falls apart. I think they're going to be in the tournament. In fact, if you just look at Utah State's resume and compare it to Washington, does Washington have a better resume than Utah State? I mean, I wouldn't say so. So, Utah State's a team that has really been under the radar this year, but they've played very well. The Mountain West is not much worse than the Pac-12. The bottom of the Mountain West is pretty bad with Wyoming and San Jose State, but there are some decent teams here. Fresno State's been pretty good this year. San Diego State's turned it around here of late. I think the Mountain West Conference has been a little bit better than I thought it would be at the beginning of the season based on some of these teams outperforming.
All right, so we got a really good slate of games here on Saturday. I mean, just in general, very, very solid list of games. You've got the Kentucky-Tennessee game. You've got Iowa State and Texas should be a good one. The one we just talked about between Nevada and Utah State. Texas Tech and TCU is a really interesting game for, seeding and bubble purposes. Gonzaga and St. Mary's, always a war. You've also got a good game in the AAC potentially between UCF and Houston.
I think this is a really good game. UCF, a team that I thought was kind of disappointing for a while this year, have certainly played a lot better here of late. They went to Cincinnati and lost by 5. They could have won that game. That was a very tightly contested game. I think UCF had a real chance in that game. I watched a lot of that game. In fact, I thought UCF looked like the better team for a lot of that game, but had a rough stretch there, even some questionable calls there at the end of the game, and then lost by 5. But if you look at their performances of late, they have some pretty nice wins at SMU. SMU is not a tremendous team right now, but that's still a pretty good win on the road. They won at UConn a while back, and then they go to South Florida, a team that's been quite a bit better here this season and won by 12. UCF is a team that is definitely on the bubble right now. They're playing quite a bit better of late, but they don't have those big wins. They need a big win. This is a really good chance for them to get that big win. Houston's been tremendous. UCF, a team that if you look at their, kind of the fingerprint of what their team looked like last year compared to this year, UCF's playing a lot faster this year. It surprises me that they've sped up this much. They were using 19 and a half seconds per possession offensively last year in conference play, only 17 and a half so far this season. So they've definitely tried to pick up the pace. Houston has also played a little bit faster here in recent games, and they've not been afraid to run up the score in some of their games here of late either. The first game was 77-68 with a tempo of 70 possessions. So they got up and down pretty good in that game. I'm looking at the over here as a possibility if we get a low 130s number. I think that both teams here a little bit better at scoring than people would have thought. And Houston's defense, obviously tremendous. UCF gives up a lot of second chance points, and I think Houston can get second chance points here. Both teams get to the line a decent amount, UCF more so. To me, this is one of those games that could really define UCF's season. They have a lot riding on this game. I think UCF's right on the bubble right now. Obviously, Houston's going to get a good seed, and they've had a great season. This game means more to UCF than it does to Houston, But if you just go and look at the American Athletic Conference, Houston's only one game up on Cincinnati, so they still need to win this game also. What kind of number is Houston going to be laying here? Houston is going to be favored likely by 7.5 or 8 points in my mind. And I would say that, my lean here would be UCF and the over.
One more game to touch on here as we head on down to the SoCon, Wofford and Sanford. Interesting game here as well. And again, such a strong weekend card in college basketball. What are you looking at here in this one?
Well, if you look at the first time these two played, Wofford needed a buzzer beater in overtime at home to beat Sanford. Sanford is a much more talented team than if you look at their record, I think they've disappointed based on, the kind of wins that they have this year. They look like a team that's ready to go toward the very top of their conference, but they're too inconsistent. This is a young team. I think Sanford will be better here in the next year or two than what they are right now. But I think they put a lot of effort in this game because they remember the way they lost that first one. At the same time, Wofford has a bunch to play for as well. An unbeaten season in the league, potential at-large berth. And I will say, I really think Wofford should be in the tournament. They better get in. So I think regardless of what they do here at the end, hopefully they don't have some terrible loss at the beginning of their conference tournament or something. But Wofford's been so good this year, it'd be hard to not put them in. How much is Wofford going to be laying here? Because Sanford hasn't played very well lately. Wofford's been obviously in great form. Maybe 7.5 points here for Wofford. I would lean toward taking the underdog. I will say that this is a game that feels like it could be, quite a bit of variance involved in this one, because it wouldn't stun me if Wofford wins by 20 points. It also wouldn't stun me if this game goes down to the final shot. I think this is a very interesting game because as long as Sanford is highly motivated based on that first game, wanting to try to get some revenge and put in a strong effort here, I think there's potential of this going right down to the buzzer. At the same time, Sanford has been slumping a bit of late and has had some tough losses. It wouldn't be shocking if they aren't as up for this game as Wofford. So to me, this is one of those fascinating handicaps that I really like to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one too, especially because, as you mentioned, Sanford, a very young team here. And, this is one of those spots where you kind of look at those senior day considerations and say, well, there aren't many. They've got a big 7-foot senior in Ruben Guerrero. They've got a 6'7" senior in Stefan Lakic, who doesn't play very much. So maybe he winds up slotting into the starting lineup. But this isn't a situation where, you've got a team that's going to run 4 seniors out there or 5 seniors with 3 or 4 guys that aren't very good, that don't play a whole lot. Sanford's probably going to run out what looks like their usual starting lineup. So that's a benefit to where they don't have to play catch up. And some teams in these games this weekend may have to play catch up at the first, at the under 16 or the under 12 TV timeout. So that's a consideration in a lot of games this weekend, not this one. And Sanford, with a young, up-and-coming type of team, I agree with you that they're going to put a lot of effort into this one.
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, why would they not try hard in this one? I will say that they've had 3 overtime games in their last 5 games and not a very deep team. So that's certainly a negative for them. Wofford is the deeper team. They're the better team. Look, nobody's denying that. Wofford's played a tougher schedule. They're an experienced team. Wofford's doing everything right here at the end of the season. I have nothing negative to say about them. I think this is just more about the handicap here is, what do you think Sanford's going to do in this game? Because I think we know what Wofford is. And Wofford has proven that they can win on the road, that they can dominate teams even that are pretty good teams. So what happens in a game like this? I don't know. I think that this is going to be very telling about Sanford as well. I think Sanford's a team that could be a sleeper in the SoCon tournament if they turn it around and play well in this game, because I think if they get some momentum, some positive feelings about how things are going for them instead of just slumping into the end of the season, I think Sanford does have the talent to make some noise.
All right, so we're going to talk about the Atlantic Sun Conference tournament here to wrap up this segment of Handicapping the Hardwood, because we're not sure if we're going to go on Monday or Tuesday with our first segment. I can tell you our second segment will be on Wednesday, but we're not sure what sort of conference tournament odds we're going to have early on in the week here. I also may need to move some of my guests around as well. So we don't know if we're going to go Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday, Wednesday next week. We'll do Wednesdays as we go throughout the rest of March here, obviously with so many games on Thursday and Friday. So definitely handicapping the hardwood every Wednesday in March. We'll let you know if next week is going to be Monday or Tuesday. I'll figure that out over the weekend here. But the Atlantic Sun Conference tournament starts on Monday. So because we're not sure if we're going to do Monday or Tuesday, we wanted to make sure we touched on it here on today's show. Look, really, when you talk about the A-Sun tournament, which is played at the campus site of the higher seeded team, this basically comes down to Lipscomb and Liberty and who has home court advantage in the likely championship game.
Right. I'm sitting here trying to look at this conference and see somebody that might threaten them, who would be a team to watch. It's hard to come up with one. These two teams are a lot better than everybody else. There's a huge gap there. I would say probably NJIT would be the next team that I would say has a little bit of a chance to cause some trouble in this tournament, partially because they play so well in defense. They have a really good freshman in Zach Cooks. NJIT is a team that I think is a bit of a sleeper, but at the same time, you look at Lipscomb and Liberty, they're both veteran teams. They're both very good, both on offense and defense. You look at the best offenses in this conference and look at the best defenses. Lipscomb's just barely the best offense in the conference. Lipscomb's the best defense in the conference as well. Who's number two in both of those? Liberty. To me, it's really hard to see somebody else winning this one. The question is, how much of a favorite would Lipscomb be against Liberty? I think Lipscomb has not played quite as well here of late as they did earlier in the season. We had them lose that game at home to Liberty. They also lost on the road to Florida Gulf Coast, and then had a close game here at home against NJIT, the team I was just talking about. So Lipscomb not really playing in their best form right now. Earlier in the season, I would have thought they'd be a pretty significant favorite here. Now I think they'd be a small favorite. To me, Liberty's a team that controls the tempo very well. I like that Liberty's able to slow the game down, good at taking care of the basketball, also can force a lot of turnovers on the defensive end. If you look at Lipscomb, they play really fast. So you get some pace wars when Lipscomb and Liberty play. This is an interesting conference because the top two teams are quality teams. To me, if Lipscomb or Liberty gets in the tournament, in the big dance, they could give somebody a hard time. This is a spot where, while I like underdog runs in conference tournaments, I do hope Lipscomb or Liberty wins this conference tournament because I think that they could be a lot of fun to watch in the big dance.
Well, and as we look at what odds could be like for this conference tournament, the A-Sun finishes up regular season play tonight. So we don't know who's going to have home court advantage between Lipscomb and Liberty as of yet. You would think both teams do take care of business here tonight. I believe Lipscomb has the tiebreaker, even though they split in the regular season. So if Lipscomb is at home, you look at the line for Lipscomb at home on February 13th, they were a 7.5-point favorite against Liberty. Liberty was a 2.5-point favorite at home against Lipscomb and lost that game by 20. So my guess here would be Lipscomb in the plus 115-ish range if they're the number one seed, maybe in the plus 125, 130 range if they're the number two seed. Liberty probably plus 140, plus 150, something like that. And then everybody else, at least 7 or 8 to 1 or higher, maybe even 9 or 1 to higher, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good guess. I think, 120 and then 145 or something like that. And then probably, 850 or 9 to 1. And like I said, it's hard. I don't think I could make a bet on anybody else other than those two teams. NJIT would be the only one I'd really consider. North Florida's had some success in the past. Florida Gulf Coast has been good in the past, but they aren't this year. And there's a lot of weak teams at the bottom of this league that really won't give anybody a hard time. So I feel like the top seeds could have a pretty easy path here. We'll see what happens, but it'd be a pretty big surprise to see somebody other than Lipscomb or Liberty. And, you would think that will be the final game here in the A-Sun. If so, I think it's going to be a very high quality game. And like I said, two teams that could give somebody a hard time.
Well, and again, as you look at these two head-to-head meetings, Liberty losing by 20 at home as a small favorite, then winning on the road by 8 as a 7.5-point dog. I'm guessing if Lipscomb is the home team here for the championship game, the line meets somewhere in the middle. Maybe Lipscomb minus 4.5, 4.5, something like that. If you're looking at Liberty at plus 150 or plus 145, there's no point in making that bet because you'll get a number similar or better in the head-to-head game to decide the winner of the Atlantic Sun tournament. So really, to me, I think the only position you can take at the start of this tournament is probably Lipscomb at plus money when they'll be a favorite in all three games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense to take Liberty when, I think 4.5 is a good guess as to what they would be on the road against Lipscomb. That game that Lipscomb lost at home, they were 3 for 18 from 3-point range. So that was really the difference in that game. If you look at the first game that the two of these teams played, it's interesting in that Liberty got their pace, but Lipscomb dominated that game. Liberty went 4 of 22 shooting the 3-pointer. So, I mean, that was the difference in those games is, who knocks down the 3-point shot. That's something that's fairly difficult to predict. I think these two teams are fairly similar as far as how good they are. Lipscomb has the better body of work so far this year, but Lipscomb has not really, finished the season quite as strong as they started it. So not sure how to look on that one because I think that last game would be very tight. I'd be more inclined to take the points with Liberty based on what I've seen here of late.
Well, and again, so when you look at these leagues that are kind of two-horse races, you want to try to project out some lines, project out what you think that conference tournament final game would look like. As I said, you could probably get the same or better price on Liberty in that one-off game and avoid something crazy happening in the first two games. With Lipscomb, they're going to be a favorite, going to be minus on the money line. So them plus money at the start is a good starting position for you. Then if you want, you play back on Liberty, you play plus the points, you free roll the championship game here in the A-Sun. So we'll talk more about these specific betting strategies and situations as we have odds for these conference tournaments. But just to give you some general tips here to start thinking about what you want to look for here, you want to keep in mind teams that run into the top seed in the semifinals, you have to get a really good price on them. Where you expect the conference tournament final to be, you want to be able to get a better price on the underdog for the futures line than for that individual game line. And then obviously, too, you want to try to project these lines out as we go forward.
Yeah, and it's a lot different when you look at one conference to another based on, whether there's a big drop down from the top team or the top couple teams. In a conference tournament like this, you can just look at those two teams and see what the line would be against each other. It gets a lot more complicated if you're looking at a league where you don't even really know who the favorite is. So, we'll certainly have some leagues like that as we talk about the conference tournaments to where, we don't have one team or two teams that's really dominated the tournament and it's wide open. Then it can be a little bit harder to project something like this, but, we'll do the best we can breaking those conferences down. And certainly I always look forward to this time of the year.
Yeah, I do too. And for our listeners out there, I will do the Monday mailbag on Monday. So send me your listener questions at Skating Tripods on Twitter or Adam at BangTheBook.com. If you've got additional conference tournament questions, and we will talk about the ones I got last week about money line rollovers, about shooting backdrops, good conference tournaments for the over, good conference tournaments for the under. Those two questions are already in reserve for whenever Kyle and I talk, whether it's Monday or Tuesday. So we'll talk about those, but send over your additional conference tournament questions for the Monday mailbag. Even if I don't use them on that segment, I'll use them here with Kyle, whether we do that on Monday or Tuesday. So Kyle Hunter from HunterSportsPicks.com. What's going on over at the website right now, man?
Putting out the March Madness package here today. Get an early start with that. I'll lower the price for that based on how much of the season has been played thus far. So check out that out at HunterSportsPicks.com. Also, if you haven't already signed up for that free picks newsletter over there, no cost to sign up. You'll get some free picks sent your way. I'll also be doing a March Madness bracket tournament there for some cash prizes there for newsletter subscribers. So if you haven't signed up for that already, I encourage you to do so.
Well, and again, so not sure if on Monday we'll have Kyle. We'll talk about it. We'll figure it out. We'll see how many conference tournament sets of odds we think we're actually going to have. If it's not enough to do a strong segment, we'll just push him back to Tuesday. I'll either move Brian Blessing or Ralph Michaels to Monday. So that'll be the plan for Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll definitely have Kyle on Wednesday to break down conference tournaments. So Kyle Hunter, HunterSportsPicks.com. Video coming up today at our Bang the Book YouTube page for tomorrow's card. Also the daily college basketball picks piece. Thank you so much for the time, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you again either Monday or Tuesday.
All right, thanks. We'll talk to you then.